All righty. So let me open up a couple of files. Let me open up the Jet City Improv wireframes because you guys aren't too sick of that project as a demo yet. Again, if you guys are ever sick of any of my samples that I use as demos, just know that I'm probably more sick of them than you are, but they still function as practical demo examples. So I'm going to open that up, and I am also going to open the visual designs for Jet City Improv. Open with. It's a good thing that these computers work really wickedly fast. Just in general, are you guys still having problems with the network and yeah, and like applications and things not working? I heard, is anybody in Web 130 right now? I heard that Chrome wasn't working and they had to use Edge, and Edge wouldn't load certain things. And
sometimes I just have to go to the computer, like see if one works.
So again, you guys know that you can file complaints. Did you guys know this? So let me show you where. So if you go to the Seattle Central website, you go under Services, Help Desk, Need, IT and Computing. Send an email to Need. Anytime you have issues, send an email to Need and CC me. Okay? Because I've been on them for certain things. Like I said, the old dean of IT services, I don't know if she got fired or she resigned, or I don't know what happened. She's not here any longer. They just finally hired somebody new. And that whole upgrade was a big fiasco. And, you know, so they still have things that they need to fix, but they need to know what you guys are having issues with. So I'm not trying to get you guys to bombard them with emails. So IT services, if you are watching this video right now, I am not trying to get students to bombard you with emails, because I send them my videos when things aren't working. So there's a good chance that they're just spying on me and going through all my videos, right? But yeah, if you do have issues like your FTP isn't working, applications aren't working, something about your login, etc., always send them. I can't do anything about it, but you know, if you send them an email and CC me, I can help follow up with it and be in the conversation. Okay.
We know that when we click send, it doesn't just automatically send it to screamintothevoid.com.
Because if you CC me, I can follow up with them.
Have you been to screamintothevoid.com?
What?
Have you been to screamintothevoid.com?
Should I go right now?
Screaming is the name.
Let's see.
It's an alternative to Twitter,
Glad you did that.
but.
Can you hear
Yeah, I
scream?
heard it.
Is it supposed to be actually screaming?
Yeah,
you can
it's
hear
like a
it.
silent.
Let's get to what we're supposed to be talking about, guys. All right, so
Thank you. Yeah.
where you guys may be is, how are your wireframes going?
Great.
Fantastic?
Good until
Yes.
you told me that I probably should.
Sorry, Nicole. Let's see if I can get Suitcase to work. No, that's,
I'd rather
let's,
pull up screen rooms and avoid it. Just get that queued up.
let's see. So,
My key to obtain the product license.
I'm trying to, thanks, Kimmy.
Server credentials in the lobby guide.
Kimmy, use screamintothevoid.com, please. I'm trying to do what they've told me to do to get it to work.
Today, I logged in and it told me that.
Kimmy,
my password is expired. Is that-
Kimmy, one last time, and if it's not working, I give up. Yeah, I've sent them emails about this. Okay, so new sets. Yeah, you got to ping pong back and to get it to work. You got to ping pong back and forth, but this is the thing. I don't know, because last time then when I tried to load a font in there, it wouldn't activate, and that was and they've asked me to try to test this in class, so that's what I'm trying to do right now. So thank you for your patience, everybody. I should type that into Screaming with the Wood. All right, well, forget it. It's just not working. So let's say that this is your wireframe. Right, there we go. So hold on. Okay. Adding fonts. Entitled set. Roman. Can I activate it? Hey, look at that. Yeah, this is being recorded right now. So it should be activated. But again, hey, finally, it's working. Okay. So you're going to have to ping pong. If you're going to use Suitcase here, then at the school, you're going to have to ping pong back and forth temporarily to get it to activate and work like that. So just, yeah. So if I were you, I'd use the Max. But anyhow, this is good news that this is, I'll send this video off to IT services as a report. So basically then what you're tasked of doing, or what you're tasked with now, is if this is your wireframe document, okay? And you have, again, homepage, gateway page, destination page, right? What you now need to do is integrate a visual design into this document, okay? So what does a visual design integrated into this document look like? It looks like this. Okay. Whether you love this design, whether you hate this design, it is still an example of then using the layers, right? So in terms of a visual design, I want you to pick then, well, let's just go to the visual design assignment page and take a look at the requirements. Visual design studies, requirements. You will need to complete a visual design study for your project website that you picked. You must complete at least 3 visual design solutions, okay, for your home page and 1 main page, total of 6 pages. You don't necessarily have to do both desktop and responsive, just pick desktop, right? So what do I mean by at least 3 visual design solutions? Those of you that took Web 105, remember that, let's see, examples, is that, yeah, I need to change that. So clients, let's just go to the JetStream problem. Well, let me update that link then. Design studies. Okay, so let's kind of take a look at what a visual design study may look like. So if we go to the Rehab Institute of Washington Visual Design Study, and or the Jet City Improv Visual Design Study, and or this Monkey Grind Espresso by Sarah Smiley, who has one of the cutest dogs in the world that I see on Facebook all the time. I don't know the name of her dog. Oh. So this is what I want from you guys in terms of a visual design study. Homepage, main page, design, 1, 2, 3. How similar and or not similar do they look? Do you have a question?
Yeah. What was the difference in the home? Was the main page like the gateway?
Yes. So a gateway or a destination page, right? Because the homepage, take a look. The homepage possibly has a spotlight. The gateway or main page may or may not, but the layout is a little bit different, right? And so you're dealing with main navigation up here and you're dealing with sub-navigation here, okay? Those are the two big components. So how similar and or different do these visual design studies look? Somebody take a crack at that explanation there.
So you're not expecting each treatment to be like worlds different?
Correct. In other words, would you say that this one is a Picasso, this one is a Dali, and this one is a Monet?
That was Da Vinci.
Huh?
That was Da Vinci.
This one's Da Vinci?
Yeah.
Okay. But you understand what I'm saying, right? In other words, you are not trying to do a Picasso, a Monet, a Dali, and a Da Vinci, right? You are basically trying to take the brand of said company and paint by numbers over your wireframe in terms of, again, it's brochureware, right? So a brochureware type website, or just any type of website in general, the number one thing about a visual design is communicating brand identity, right? So if you have noticed over the years, possibly, visual designs have gotten much more simple. Again, if we go back to the visual design of the website that we looked at the navigation for. Describe this visual design to me.
Was this expert looking at like the Chevrolet like 2003, 2013?
I have no idea what you're talking about, so probably not.
There was a link that I saw where you could see what the Chevrolet or the GM website looked like in
Oh, back then versus now?
Yeah.
If you can find that, you're welcome to, post a link and I'll put it up. But no, that wasn't this class.
It's pretty interesting, like last year and past.
So describe this visual design to me in one word.
Clean.
Nicole, what was that you said? Did you say simple? Who said simple?
I did.
And Alia, you said simple? Analia, I know. Word of the day, functional, yes. Branded? Yeah. How about a color palette?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the colors in the palette?
And orange.
And George Green.
So let's say it this way. Black and white are not colors in a palette. Black and white is, black is the absence of light. White is the true saturation of light, okay? So we are going to talk about tints and shades using black and white in terms of a grayscale. So
When you say black and white, that includes all the shades of gray.
yeah, so if we look up grayscale and we go under images, grayscale gorilla, how did that get?
Okay.
I'm just looking for grayscale, right? So that's awesome. That's called grayscale. And you Game of Thrones fans?
No
Yeah.
spoilers. That's no spoiler.
That's not a spoiler.
I'm just saying.
If you have not watched it all, like everything that's already been out there,
I'm watching.
yeah. Well,
I came back to two that.
is saying this disease is called grayscale, is that really a spoiler?
No.
If I said she dies, that would be a spoiler. So,
Thank you for defining that.
hey, I didn't say whether she dies or not, Liz. I didn't. I did not. Okay. So, grayscale. 100% white, right? So this is kind of backwards, where we would typically say this is 0% black. Okay. 10% black, 20% black, so on and so forth, until how much more black could it be?
Yeah. None more black.
Thank you. One person got that joke. Anybody? So, what movie? Spinal Tap. Right? Love. Right. How much more black? It's like, how much more black could it be? None more black. That's the answer. Okay. So we are then going to use tints adding white and shades adding black, okay, to our colors. So black and white are not part of the color palette. They are, if you think of them as tints and shades to the color palette, okay? But what we need to do is come up with possibly 2 or 3 colors, like this orange, like this green. Now, this gray may or may not be a tint of black, right? So let's see what color that might be. Oh, it's actually a total image, so we'll be able to see that. Well, regardless, what you need to do now is, if I go back to this Jet City Improv site, there's a couple of ways that you can come up with a color palette. So number one, you need to come up with a color palette for your website project. So either A, they have a pre-existing logo with a pre-existing color palette. How many of you are working on a project that they have a logo already with color palette? Okay, a few of you guys, right? So remember the one question out of the Web 105 client survey, where it said, are you happy with your logo? And if they say, we love it, and you go, right? You're just going to have to use it. That's their brand. Okay, so again, what your objective is to make this visual design convey their brand. Nothing more, nothing less. So one could argue that this is somewhat of a bloated visual design, right? Meaning, I've used the city sky, skyline and the Space Needle and a jet and, you know, water and the moon and the stars to kind of give it a more robust creative visual design. Then would you argue that this is not much of a creative visual design? Okay. However, it's a visual design that is functional. Okay. So think of a visual design in terms of this. It's modern, it's clean. Think of a visual design in terms of this. So again, one of the quotes out of the Web 105 book that we used, without good, relevant content, everything else is just a placeholder. So think of your content like a picture. So, do you want a picture frame? I don't know why I've never thought about grouping picture frames before instead of drawing it up on the board. You'd think, being a web design instructor, this. Right. So do you want a picture frame like that?
No.
Why?
I like the
Okay. Like this?
Yeah.
What's good about this one? What?
It's more attractive.
Why is it more attractive to you?
It's gold and
Okay. So the question that becomes, does this picture frame match the brand of the company? Okay. So if you were doing, I don't know, describe that picture frame. What's the genre? Where does it come from? Where would you see that picture frame?
Classic.
Okay. Maybe that's a picture frame on in Downtown Abbey's bedroom, right? Okay, that was a joke that failed. In Downton Abbey, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So like in the fireplace library room, right? So that would fit that frame. Would this picture frame fit that frame? No. Think of your house, right? Would this fit the brand of your house? Would this fit the brand of your house?
yes.
Okay, so you might have, right?
I have like a wall full of different.
Okay.
things.
Now, in terms of functionality, right? Because I really like that word. If I were trying to focus on the picture here, looking at these two, and for those of you at home, I am merely just looking at these two. So if I had to concentrate on what was going on in the picture here, would I be more likely to be able to concentrate on the picture with this picture frame or with this picture frame?
Depends on the picture.
Depends on the picture.
Bring out certain.
Okay, so if this was in that picture, if it was in the Louvre and it was framing a Monet, right? That may be appropriate and it may bring out the aesthetics of the Monet, right? But if I'm shopping at Home Depot, I'm going to want this as a picture frame, okay? If I'm looking at Jet City Improv, I may want something a little more creative, right? But not so bloated and misrepresented, okay? So ultimately, though, your content is the picture, and your picture frame is the visual design that houses and frames that picture, okay? Is that a good analogy for you guys?
Yeah.
So therefore, go ahead.
What if you don't have a logo?
You took the type class,
Why didn't you don't have a logo and you didn't take the type
Make a
class?
logo.
then you can make Annalena do it for you.
Make a logo. Me too.
Not yet to me too.
I can help you, Liz, I can help you, or, Andrea could help you. She seems nice, she's talented.
Sure, none of my classmates have any.
Right. So if we, again, look at this visual design, it's functional. It has a color palette that is branded. In other words, we look at this and we know it's Home Depot because of the association of the brand color, right? We know that orange, just like there are other colors that we know that are associated to other brands, and we'll talk about that down the road. But the first thing that you want to do in terms of your visual, we forgot to, well, let's just use this one as a class example here. So what you need to do is be between mixing and matching of typography, color, imagery treatments on top of your wireframes, come up with 3 visual design solutions. So for instance, these are not super wickedly different, right? But there are 3 different directions that a client can choose from. In other words, back when I first started doing web design, I thought to myself, oh man, I need to do a Picasso, a Monet, and a Dali, right? That was the point of visual design, because I was used to doing poster design or CD cover design, where if you were doing posters, they had to be really unique, right? In terms of a website, again, it's a brochure. It's just like, remember in the typography class, except you listed, you didn't take that typography class. But one of the concepts in that typography class was, think about when you get a business card from somebody, okay? Do you look at this business card and go, oh, I'd take them seriously? Or do you look at this business card and go, oh, I wouldn't take them seriously, right? So rarely, if ever, do you look at, in other words, when I look at the Home Depot website, do I look at that and go, oh my God, that is so creative, and that is, oh my God, that is just awesome. No, you look at that and you say to yourself, I take that seriously, also known as it doesn't suck, right? So the colors are an appropriate color scheme, or they're a color scheme that we associate with that brand identity. The typography associate with that brand identity. In other words, the type treatments there are bold enough to be functional over top of a very pleasant image, right? That is an appropriate image of, I mean, how can you go wrong with this? Mom and girl are gardening, or doing some plant something or other, or whatever they're doing. And look what a good time. Oh, look at the smile on my face.
It's precious.
Right? It's precious, right? I'm gonna think about this all day long now, and my day is gonna be, right? But what's really happening is we look at this, and the visual design allows the functionality to take place. So on e-commerce websites, which we'll talk about in Web 202 when you get there, right? Visual designs on e-commerce websites are very, very scaled back, where visual designs on, let's just go to one that I did. So looking at this visual design, you may think to yourself, it's a little bit outdated, right? Because, you know, it was done in 2009, I think, which was a while back. But in terms of visual design, would you agree that this visual design looks pleasant enough, translates the brand's color scheme, even though you may or may not like the color scheme, but is functional, right? How many colors are in this palette here?
One.
2. Huh? 2.
Is there like some kind of like,
So what you're seeing is the color palette here is that kind of maroonish purple and this gray.
but I thought gray is not color.
This gray is not a black and white gray. It's a colorized gray, Pantone gray.
What about the darker?
Okay. This is a shade of that color. This is a tint of that color. So in terms of having a 2-color palette, you can then use tints and shades, which you have up on the screen right there.
Did that gray have pink in it, red in it, and gray in it?
Let's see. I may or may not have the color palette up and running on it. Yeah, it's relatively small. 2 colors. PMS 222 and PMS 414. Okay? This one is 222 and 415. So they changed this color if it was over top of the dark versus this color if it was over top white. So it's kind of a
Like a beige.
beigeish gray. Yeah. So these are the 2 colors. primary color or base color, base color, right there, okay? So therefore, I can make tints and I can make shades to then expand. So I use then the more, so let's say this is the kind of dominant color. This is more of the subservient color, and there's no real accent color. Okay? So a color they did use here and there was a yellow. That would have been the accent color, right? So there's functions of those colors as well. Typically, you have a dominant and a subservient color, right? So if we look at the Home Depot one, I would say that what's going on here is the orange is the dominant, this one is the subservient, and the green is the accent color. Okay, but with that color, then you can see here a little bit of the depth on the button. That is then using a shade of that color, or this might be a tint of that one, right? To then bring in the hierarchy of information, to bring in the dimension, right? In other words, what makes dimension? In other words, what color is this?
Black.
Okay, is it really? When you look at it,
No.
what's going on?
It's darker on the edges.
Right, okay. It's the dimensions. It's the use of light to create dimension. So white being true light, right? Black being the absence of light.
Did they use some sort of like filter
Hold on.
to make it look more orangey?
Shadow.
Shadow, yeah. So that's where you do the tints and shades, which I'm going to do that in Illustrator here.
Like that shop online button has a darker border bottom.
Correct. So what it looks like to me is this orange, the darker orange is the base orange, and this is the tint, right? So
Picture itself also looks like.
possibly they may have color treated that photo, yes, or they may have just chosen a photo that complements their environment, right? So this is where then, by utilizing the base colors, right, and then black and white, so tints, shade, right, shadow. My neighbor's cat is named Shadow, so I just thought of shadow.
Different kind of shadow.
Different kind of shadow.
That's the dog's name. We don't know that.
So base color, tint, and shade. So when you are using reds or purples, the tints, you probably don't want to go in this range. You probably want to use more of the shades. But here, it looks appropriate to use the lighter kind of beige, gray right there. It also looks very appropriate to look the dark, right?
Why with reds and blues, or reds and purples, do you not use the tints and?
Because red turns into pink and purple turns into lavender. So in the UW brand guidelines, they state, do not make our UW purple into a tint because it will turn into lavender.
So their
And
purple
the teams
always
won't
has to
take
be
us seriously.
purple.
What?
Their purple always has to be purple, but their other colors could potentially be.
Correct. Correct.
Like the gold,
The gold.
it can be a tint or,
I think so. I've used it as a shade in the past.
so there's nothing inherently wrong with pink and lemon.
No.
Okay.
This leads me to then color theory. So what's wrong possibly with pink then is the association we have with pink. So we are influenced by colors. Meaning, what does red typically mean?
Stop, warning. Intensity.
Danger. It could also mean love. Did you say McDonald's? You don't say much, but when you do say something. Okay. So why then on, let's say, something like,
Roses, power, and optimism.
Or danger.
Energy, passion.
So why on this design here did I use these colors? This base blue and this base. So again, this is not a grayscale gray. This is a cool gray, right? But looking at this design here as just a visual design, between colors, imagery, and typography, would you say that this visual design fits the brand? Why or why not?
Yes,
Why?
because a
Professional.
lot of people wear blue when they're being trying to be professional.
Right. So blue translates into a corporate color, right? Like silver and black transfer into corporate colors, sometimes green because of money, right? But blue seems to be trust, conservative, secure, right? So when we were talking about the Edward Jones logo and the typeface was trust, you know, old-fashioned, you know, security like that. Blue does the same thing as well. Silver, futurism, elegance. So what I was going for was trust, conservative, and elegance, okay? So therefore then, I chose those two colors. Then from there, it was choosing imagery. Okay? So we stumbled across these images on iStock. iStock, I would cruise through iStock, put terms into iStock, right? So this is where we found this great set of illustrations that then we were able to use by and then colorize the way we wanted to then flesh out the brand of the company. So thereby, between color palettes, typography, so they used Euro style. That was their typeface that they had in their logo. So this is their old logo. This was then my redo of their logo, okay? But Euro style seemed to fit with who they were as a company. So I felt that it was an appropriate typeface. So instead of not using it, in other words, if we look at this, this is their old design. If we look at this, between typography, imagery, and color, would you say that this is carrying through the brand of this company? Yes or no? Absolutely not. When I went to look at this old website with the client, his answer was profoundly, sharply, no. I am not going to look at that again. Huh? What screensaver? This? Why is that there? You tell me.
What she said, I don't know.
I don't know. So they did not use the typography from the logo to brand things out, right?
I love the lighthouse, and the guy on the phone, like,
What does any of this mean? It means nothing, right? Why are you giving me the circus over here? I don't understand it. Now, blue and orange, right? Again, they're using tints and shades here, right? But look what happens to the blue, right? It looks kind of washed out, but what's wrong with blue and orange?
everything.
They are what types of colors on the color wheel? Complementary. So when they come together, they make a chromatic gray, which will vibrate. Okay? That's color theory. Same thing with red and green. They make a chromatic gray, so it'll vibrate in the middle. It can be a nice touch, right? But what else is wrong with blue and orange?
Blue and orange looks like sports teams colors.
Mhm.
They're like
Which one in particular?
New York
Broncos.
Mets or the New York Knicks.
Broncos.
Broncos.
Right. So you look at this and you can't help but think, Broncos in your head. Or for me, growing up in Southern California, who grew up in Southern California? Anybody?
If you're a Bronco fan, right?
Union 76. Now the Union 76 has changed to red and blue, but it used to be orange and blue. So I can't look at this without thinking about Union 76. So associations. So in terms of color then, right, you have associations that may be associations like Denver Broncos, oh my God, or how red can say danger and is a very brash color. Has anybody ever heard the theory of painting the walls in a prison pink? Okay, it's true, they've done it. They've done studies on it, where the pink has calmed down the inmates. Yeah. Okay, my house is pink. True story. Okay. Or it's more of a salmon, but it's yeah, anyway. Or you can have color referencing red in China, a symbol of good luck. Blue, color of immortality in many Eastern countries, right? Green, associated with money, okay? So you can have associations as well in terms of culture, right? Like if we are trying to be environmental, right? We typically use the greens and browns, right? So, but yeah, you don't want to use a color on a website for another culture that offends them or has a different association. So be conscious of that. But in typical, you know, associations, we want to go psychological. Orange, fun and happiness,
Or
right?
then at the bottom it says that it's on sale. Or it's cheap websites for the United States. On the color influence one, if you go down on the orange.
Oh, yeah, inexpensive items, etc. Yeah, okay. So how do you then pick a color? Or let's say it like this. The logistics of color. Where are you going to use them? Backgrounds, body text and headlines, navigation, okay? So backgrounds, the background is the backdrop or canvas against which all the content and information appears. It should make an impression on the viewers but not distract them. So if we go back to Home Depot, you can't go wrong with white, right? If we take a look then at the RIW, I've used a light version of that warm gray. I've also used a dark version to reverse this out of. So if we get into then it actually being used on a page, right? The body copy has enough contrast over this background, okay? So I like to say you should have at least a 70% contrast ratio, right? Does that make sense, right? So if we looked at values, right? If we went back to the, so if I put 0, or if I put pure black over this background, I could read a lot better, I could read a lot better, I could read a lot better. If I put black over this, I'm not going to be able to read it, okay? So what you can do to see contrast and value like that is take a colored image, open it up in Photoshop, turn it to black and white, and with the eyedropper see the grayscale percentage to see the value, okay? Body text and headlines. Your text must be easy to read. Pick a color that reads well in the background you have chosen. You can't go wrong with black over white. Typically go with dark over a light background, right? If you go light over a dark background, kind of stick to that being accent text, right? There's a reason, well, let's just ask you, why do you not see many websites these days that have white text over a black background? Was that Jess?
Hard to read.
Hard to read. What's the other reason?
Considerations.
Well, that would go with hard to read.
I would think it'd be like a gothic or a band website or something.
You hit the nail. The game, what's in Mike's head perfectly.
Like that is what your,
Huh?
but then my wish would be that gothic.
Then it would be appropriate.
The edgy.
Right,
Like tattoo shop.
right. But for Home Depot's website or physical therapy website, would you go with light text over a dark background? Probably not, because we're not a gothic or a punk band, right?
It's uninviting.
Yeah, and it's hard to read.
And if your users might potentially want to print out your pages.
Correct. You could do a print style sheet, right? Navigation. The user should be aware of the navigation, but not distracted. So non-distracting color from the palette should be used. Establishing rules for navigation via color will help overall consistency, right? So that's where, what I would recommend you do is I like going through the CSS Garden website and just start going through all the designs, right? And seeing how color has been used in terms of backgrounds. And this looks like it's totally new design. Interesting. Right? That looks great. But again, if we go look at the one that I brought up the other day, oops. Right? Strong color from your palette, strong typography for headlines, body copy, readability, 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 black over a light color. Now, in navigation, you can get away with a little bit more creativeness, right? But again, a navigation should perform the task of, I know you're there. I know I can always go click on you, right?
Yeah, and that navigation that you were just on, you wouldn't immediately recognize that as navigation.
This,
Yeah.
true. But it's also sidebar navigation. It's a little bit different, you know,
Yeah, it seems like.
versus
I'm sorry.
I know the navigation is there, but it's not screaming at me. I know it's there. It's treated nicely. It looks nice within the design of the page. It looks nice within the design of the page, you guys.
Yeah.
When it's at the top, you don't have to go hunting for it.
Right. Okay. So here's another screenshot that kind of goes into color psychology, color terms, shade, tint, saturation, hue. We're typically going to talk about shade and tints in a little while, but how you then want to be able to pick color combinations. So on the color wheel, you may want to pick colors that are monochromatic, right? In other words, the color, tints. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that monochromatic with a color, possibly 2 or 3 colors. Okay? Complementary. This is where colors are on the opposite side of the color wheel, right? A lot of sports teams use that. Denver Broncos, orange and blue. Christmas, red and green, right? They are typically complementary colors. Don't complement each other quite often. They box with each other, right? They clash. They're harsh when they're put next to each
It's
other.
like a stoplight today.
Yeah, right.
One at a time.
Analogous. So if you grab colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, right, they start looking like each other. right? And they go together, like a nice suit, right, with a nice tie, or a nice outfit that's kind of coordinated, where you have different colors, but they go together, right, like your scarf. Right? Okay. Don't all everybody look at Liz, but let's look at Liz, right? So that is a good example of analogous, kind of on the same side of the color wheel-ish, right? Split complementary. This is a real nice one to have two kind of analogous, right? And then kind of that accent color, the jarring one that's on the other side, right? So this is where in the Home Depot, orange is over here, and then green is on the other side of the color wheel. So there are accent colors on the other side of the color wheel. Right? Triad. If you're going to the circus, use triad, right? They're all kind of on different sides of the color wheel, right? And they look kind of harsh next to each other. Right? This is hard, picking colors like that.
So are those rules that we should follow for our web then? So like you're saying, don't use complementary and probably not triad. Or again, is it with like the picture frame?
Yeah, so here's kind of what I'm saying. This is hard to pick that kind of stuff.
So we could potentially use any one of those
Correct.
colors.
So in terms of theory, I'm just describing the theory, right? Actually going to a color wheel.
I recommend they go to the color wheel.
So if you go to Cooler,
Yeah, there we go.
Are you gonna show us how to use it? Because I use it and I don't think I use it in the smartest way.
I'm not a pro at it. So what I'm saying is you could,
You can upload a.
right? So, okay, everybody back up here. Everybody. Kimmy?
I'm here, what's up?
So if you pick triad, right, and then you bring this down and this in there, this is when I start losing it, right? What's the value and the tone in there, okay? But this nonetheless kind of gives you the theory of doing these like this. However, picking the appropriate color combination is fucking tough. So instead, what I would recommend was go to a website like Color Lovers. Look at that, I'm logged in. And let's say, whoops.
Colors will be viewed.
Right. So your guy is a what, filmmaker?
Mhm.
Type in filmmaker.
Yeah, color palette. So put it in this in, but
Right. So one of the exaggerated ones I use as an example is, let's say you're doing a website for a cupcake factory.
Is that a little example down in the corner that's in the cafe podcast?
I don't know.
oh yeah, let's see, it's using those colors now. Let's see about that.
So if I type in cupcake,
Oh, I like it.
this is what I would recommend, going this route. Okay? So let's pretend that the website then that I am doing is a cupcake place for lovers.
Nice.
You take your date to go get cupcakes. You don't love the cupcakes, Nicole. You love them. She looked at me like,
So it's not basically.
it is. You can go on a date with your kids and get cupcakes. It's, okay, maybe it's not for lovers. It's for people on a first or a second date
With the kids.
with the kids. Because they're watching my kids. Okay, so if I open then my wireframe demo, spring 17, which didn't save. Forgot about that. Let's go winter 17. And then I'm gonna rename this. Visual demo SP17. All right. So let's say I'm here now and I want to add color into this. First thing I want to do is I want to make my color palette. Okay, so I can have one file that I save as my color palette. Ready? Here we go. Now that I'm logged in, I can download as an AI file. So here's my cupcake sprinkles. I'm going to rename it Cupcake Color Cupcakes. Okay. I am going to open that in Illustrator. And if I go to my swatches palette now, I should see them in the swatches palette. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to expand this color palette. So let's say that maybe I'm not going to use that color. And do I even want this one? Yeah, I want that one. The rest of those are nice. Okay. So what I want to do then is I want to create this kind of a grid, right? Where I make tints and shades out of my color palette. So I can then so here's the blue, here's the red, here's the yellow, here's the right color yellow. So if I want to right here use that shade of that yellow versus right here use the root branded base color of that yellow, I can, right? Same thing for all these buildings. I use the JCI gray in different shades, right, of that gray to use the palette throughout everything, right? So here's what I want to do to start off with. I'm here in Illustrator. and I've got my color cupcakes, and I want to make a tints and shades palette. So what I'm going to start off doing is rectangle. I'm going to draw a square.
You didn't want that one.
Right. So I'm going to say none. Actually, I'm going to say none there. And let's do the brown to start out with. Okay. Hold down the Alt key. Copy. Control D, Control D, Control D.
You don't have to, do they have to have like a specific amount of space between?
That's not necessarily the idea here. Okay. So no. Base color, I want to do tints. Base color, I want to do shades. So a long time ago, I wrote up that lecture that you had up on the screen where you could pick a color, you could change it to a spot color, and where's the slider? Where's the slider? Adjust the tints and shades, or adjust the tints. Shade, you had to go back to process color to adjust the black. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Then after I spent years working on this masterpiece of an article, Illustrator decided to say, you know what, Mike? It's a good thing you wasted all that time. Because now what we're going to do is we are going to give you the color guide palette. Where if I choose this color and I choose show tints and shades of that color, come on. Why are you showing me green?
Is the top row the one that?
Yeah, but it should just, it shouldn't be showing me that green.
It's checking for your photo view. Okay.
Shouldn't be. Why are you? Okay. Well, let's choose this color. Yeah, there. That's why is that? There we go. Let's go shades. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So let's say I want to make a tint and shade palette of that color right there. See what I'm saying? Which is the original? Which would be 53. So that's the original one right there.
And they're all the same time, because they're all selected into the other colors.
Yeah. So basically what you can do is you can choose a color, right? Select. Whoops. Choose that color. Shift select. All right. So if I select one thing, hold down the shift key, I can select everything if I want to, right? But I typically take this top row, and I can even get rid of, well, let's do that. Let's delete that one so I know that's the original. That one, delete that one because that's the original. So what I can do then is, let's say I've now got these squares like that, okay? And this is the base color, and I want to then show a visual representation of tints. This is the base color. I want to show a visual representation of shades. Again, this is black right there. I don't need that black. Delete that. Yes.
Even the one shade lighter than black. and
Yes.
One shade, one tint shy of white.
Correct. In other words, 100, 80, 60, 40, 20. 100 or 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. Does that make sense? So then I can go to this one. I can go back and change it to the original color. And this really isn't necessarily that functional. It's just a visual representation here. But there's going to be something important that I'm going to do with it in a second.
So do you usually use the like middle one as the main color? So you're more into like.
Ooh, did I? So the middle one, yeah, is the base color. Did I delete something over there? Let's do this again. Let's,
I think you skipped one.
yeah, let me make sure that I made the correct colors to start out with. So that's my base. I could actually, you know, put these in a folder. So let's see. Okay. Put those in a folder. All right. So 61. So so that's the base color. It's one lighter, one lighter, one lighter, one lighter. Original color. One darker, one darker, one darker, one darker. So I'm going to save this as my color cupcakes palette. And here is the magic. If I want to go to my visual demo here now, and let's say I want to load that swatch palette that I just made. Window, swatch libraries, other library, WEB200, color cupcakes, open. I now have this palette open. Okay, that if I want to then create a new layer called background, and I want to pick this color as my background. And arrange, make sure it's sent back. And then I want to take my navigation. You know, I think I'm going to go with a white background. But nonetheless, I can start, you know, putting color in here, okay? If I wanted to.
Cool.
Yeah, which then you can turn things into, and this file right here is available for you guys to download and take a look at, you know? So yeah, so if you wanted then, you know, a footer, a mega footer, that was that orange, you know, or maybe a mega footer that was a little bit lighter or a little bit darker of that. You could start putting your colors in there. Let's just go back to that orange, right? You know, if I wanted then to make those white over top of that color, then that may not be the most readable, but you know, take off your borders, you know, when you're doing, this is then how you're going to start integrating your color in there, okay? As far as images go, let's say I want to go back to, so let's turn off the gateway and go back to the home page. And in my sidebar, I have a link to iStock. Do I really have to sign in? You son of bitches. And I wanted to look for photos of cupcakes. So in iStock, what you can do, don't go doing image searches on Google to find images, right? Because you are going to be downloading somebody's copyrighted work. iStock, these are royalty free that have the watermark in them, so you can save image as file, place. Think so? You're right. So I can place that. And now if I want her to be just inside this window right there, okay? So I should have placed her, we'll lock the header layer and lock, I didn't do a footer layer, right? But if I wanted to place her now inside of that box,
It's 175.
thanks, Liz. See how useful you are? If I select this, if I take her, I send her to back, then I select this box and I say object, clipping mask, make, that image now is inside that box and inside that box only. So I can then take that image I could even do a treatment like, so kind of what Nicole said earlier about, well, did they treat that photo? Maybe. They maybe did something like this, where they drew a box and they used kind of that light color there to then window gradient. Come on. Should be transparent. Sorry. Okay. Now, this gradient. Right, you're not going to let me do this? Come on. Why? What have I done? No, it should be able to. Oh, it was the fill. That's what it was. The line should be none. Fill. None. Let's see if I can add none there. No. But I can go 0 there. There we go. All right. So let's see. I want you can still kind of see some. Well, anyway, you can Photoshop it or whatever, but if you want to then have some type, holy shit, this is good. And you can pick a better, ooh, there we go. That's right there, that's Cupcake. right?
Cupcake Sands.
Yeah, Cupcake Sands.
Takes the edge off the ship.
Yeah. This demo is always really fun for me. Because I just, From there, you want to, just start filling, start simple. Start, try a dark header, try a light header, try a dark navigation, try a light navigation, a light footer, a dark footer, right? So go take a look at websites and just kind of look at the areas of color that they're putting in there. But, I mean, does this look any different than the Home Depot website?
Whatever. Just kidding.
Right. I mean, pick photos and typography and, but keep yourself simple and,
It's okay to use images with watermarks.
huh?
It's okay to use the images with watermarks.
It is preferred to use images with watermarks right now because what you are basically doing is you are essentially in the real world giving visual design choices to your client to sign off on to then purchase high-res versions of the photos. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
So in the real world, we would be using watermark images more than likely.
correct, right? So when you are yeah, I'd have to clean that up. I would probably clone that a bit or something. But yeah, so when in the real world, let me show you what I'm talking about by the real world. So if we go to then, so do we talk about color palettes? Yeah, extending with tints and shades, blah, 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 putting it all together. We looked at some of those. Visual design studies. So this is a real visual design study that was shown to the client. Notice the pictures have watermarks, right? So I hired 3 other designers to do visual designs for me, right? There's me.
That's me.
Yeah. Why? So one visual, here's the thing with really talented visual designers. They don't follow directions very well. They use the wrong color palette and use stripper images, right? This one was appropriate, but yeah, so leave the watermark in there because right now what you're trying to do is come up with a visual design solution, right? So in these visual design solutions that I just accidentally closed, light header, dark header, try mixing and matching things, right? The first 2 visual design studies out of this weren't very good. Luckily, this one was.
Did you say you're gonna do critiques?
Yeah. So if you're halfway to 75% of the way done with your visual design studies, come and get a critique from me. should tell you what's working, what's not working, right? But does that make sense? So between color, imagery, typography, give me 3 different solutions that, you know, range along the lines of this, you know, have it open up into a page or just, you know, open up as the JPEG file that I can take a look at, right? But, you know, this is enough of a difference in a visual design study to just kind of, you know,
And it's a bit subjective though, right? Like
Yeah.
how different they are.
yeah.
So, because like she's got lots of different images of coffee, but what if you only want to use one?
If you put the effort into it, Liz, and you're showing me 3 different solutions,
And this is due Monday, 2 weeks. And then it's due on Monday.
so here's what you have to do with me. You have all next week as lab. Sorry we didn't have lab time today, okay? I'll push the critique. Let's see.
Well, the wireframes, could those be due?
So, because you need to sit down with me and have a critique, right? Before you turn in your visual design studies. So we can see I'm gonna have to lecture that day on Memorial Day because that's a holiday.
Do you have lecture on Memorial Day?
No. So let's say your visual design studies will be due the Wednesday of week 9. Your visual design critique, you will need to have a critique with me by the end of week 8. So we are in week 6, okay? So when you get halfway done with your visual design studies, or you have some sketches ready to show, come and talk to me, and I'll push you, we'll talk about it, okay?
And then it's due almost.
So the studies, the actual turning in the studies like this, posted to your server with 3 different designs, I will give you till this Wednesday of week 9. Okay? But critiques, you have to get something critiqued with me by the end of week 8. So we'll have all next week lab time. We'll have week 8, that Wednesday being lab time. Okay?
But essentially, you have a critique, we have to have our 3 visual designs.
You have to be halfway. 50 to 60%.
What does that mean exactly? Like, what would that look like?
Have something that I can say is working or not and push you in directions. So everybody, so again, you weren't in the typography class, Liz, but you guys remember what you came up to me with, you know, halfway finalized stuff in the typography class that then I pushed you into a final? That's what I'm talking about. Give me some sketch, give me something to work with, Liz.
So 3 visual designs, each about 50%.
Yes. Or one that's totally awesome and a couple that are half-assed.
That you really don't want to do.
Maybe, yeah. And we'll talk about how to round it out to 3 complete studies. Does that make sense?
Yes, as well.
This one.
I have a question about
You
colors.
please me.
I have a question about colors. How many are we supposed to have? Like, you can, like, is it sort of open?
Between typography, color, and imagery, you need to have 3 concepts. You need to have 3 design
Is there a
studies.
minimum and maximum suggestion on colors? Like, you should have at least 3
It,
colors.
it's relative, you know, it's relative to the brand. I have trouble going past 3. I like to stick to 2, possibly 3.
So that cupcake thing, that was a lot.
So if you picked 3 nice colors out of the cupcake thing, yeah, I would really recommend for you guys to get used to this, right? Go to the Color Lovers. The unfortunate thing about the Color Lovers is that you need to create an account, but what's your website about?
It's like a nonprofit business.
Give me a
Transportation.
transportation,
I looked at it. I didn't really like the colors.
doesn't matter. Pick something.
I guess the one in the middle, like, wait, hold on. Go down. Wait, oh yeah, wait, you have evening transport.
Yeah, this looks nice.
That would be okay.
Yeah,
Or maybe bizarre.
bizarre, because that'd be a nice accent color.
Yeah, maybe
You know?
that one.
Just pick
Some of
one.
them are weird.
Yeah, but you know what I'm
They were
saying?
too
Like
bright.
that's what I'd really recommend. Just go to Color Lovers, type in some keywords, find some palettes, download them, work with them, even if you are kind of jittery about them, right?
For every color, you have to have shades and tints. So if you chose 5 colors, like that one is 5.
I would do tints and shades of all of them. But again, not necessarily. But right. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
Welcome to the art department, Liz. Leave your self-esteem at the door, please.
If they have a logo, then you kind of have to go with their logo colors.
Correct.
But yours doesn't have a logo.
But this is a school project,
So it doesn't matter then.
so you could do your own.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. You guys are, and here's the thing, right? I love that you guys, I love that, right? I do. But what I want you guys to do is go through the experience and have the journey of learning how to do this without being perfect. Fuck up and let's talk about it. Now, don't fuck off and let's talk about it. Right?
There's a big difference. Okay.
But Liz, as long, and I can tell who's putting in the work and who's not. But everybody's a snowflake, right? Put in the work and be your own snowflake. Be who you are, put in what you can. Like Andrea, she has a shitload of experience in design, so hers better be the best in the whole class.
So people like me to never taken very much.
Correct. I could,
That would've-
I'm not, no offense, I'm not expecting as much from you as I am from Andrea.
Yeah, I'm blowing my hair out, you have to watch this.
That's kind of what I'm saying, right? Sorry, Andrew, I'm just gonna, you know.
For the next class, could you have our names written down in order of the spectrum of what your expectations are, so we can see?
Yeah, yeah.
He's probably just
Yeah.
telling you, hey,
Liz, I love you, but not that much.
Alright.
I mean, you are my favorite, Liz. You are, without a doubt. But
So I got a question about the wireframes. I'm in communications right now with a guy. I'm putting this website together, and he still haven't gotten back to me about the specifics of what he's doing.
yeah,
Okay.
this is school project. Yeah. Oh, let me close out of the video real quick.